You hear me say this. Here's how I want to end our time together. The second part, remember I said we would look at verse 18? Well, verse 18 says this: all this is from God, who through Christ, listen to the twofold movement, reconciles us to himself and then gives us the ministry of reconciliation. So I want to keep saying this. Their marriage and the reconciliation of their marriage is an illustration, not the point. Because I'll say this, man, if you're in an abusive marriage, you should get out of that marriage, right? You're being abused. Like, we're not celebrating this in such a way like, hey, if you're being abused, you should stay. And like, you're getting abused, I think you need to get out. But I wanted you to hear us say this, and I want to put an exclamation point on it, that God does not waste the sorrows of his people, ever. That there is no tear, there is no loss, there is no heartbreak that God does not, will not redeem in time for his glory and for our joy. And this becomes super important in a culture that's so hell-bent on speed and transformation overnight, and it should be easy now. And the reason why Christianity doesn't have an asterisk at the bottom that says results not typical is because God forms his people the same way, through joy and through trial. This is why the Bible's filled with God trying to strengthen your legs and your hands to endure. Because the promise is not that if you give your life to Christ, everything goes your way. The promise on repeat in the Bible is that God is at work in the mess, and if you have God, he will be enough regardless of your life's circumstances. So you don't get to use God as a genie in a bottle. He is your hope, and when you have him, then there's hope for other movement, but he'll be enough whether you see the movement you really want or not. And that's the message of our faith. And that's why there's not an asterisk at the bottom of Christian transformation. Because it's lifelong, and it's wrought with long-suffering patience and belief that God's at work right now. And so on the night that Jeff hears the wife of his youth say, I don't love you, I never loved you, God's at work. When he's putting his twin daughters to bed and there's a knock on the door and a sheriff serves him with divorce papers, God's at work in the mess. When he picks up his daughters from Cheryl's house and sees the man that he knows, and it makes sense that his wife now has been having an ongoing adulterous affair with another man, God is at work in the mess. When Cheryl begins to see what is right, good, and true from the Word of God, God is at work in the mess. For 5 years, as she tries to be obedient to God and sees all these hurdles in her way, God is at work in the mess. He reconciles us to himself, sustains us in himself, and then gives us the ministry of reconciliation. None of your pain has been wasted. None of your sorrow has been wasted. He reconciles us to himself, and then allows us to be agents of reconciliation.